The exile. The massive view screen in the Consortium High Council chamber flickered to life, revealing a desolate, wind-swept landscape bathed in the eerie glow of a blood-red sun. Jagged spires of obsidian rock clawed at the crimson sky, while pools of bubbling acid dotted the barren plains. This was Nix-9, the deadliest planet in known space. High Counselor Zixar, his iridescent scales shimmering under the chamber's harsh lights, turned to face the lone human standing before the assembled alien dignitaries. "Commander Sarah-Chen of Earth," he intoned, his melodious voice tinged with barely concealed disdain, "you stand accused of insubordination, reckless endangerment of consortium assets, and worst of all, independent thinking." Sarah stood ramrod straight, her dark eyes blazing with defiance. At 35, she was in her prime, one of humanity's finest soldiers and tacticians. Her black hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her olive skin bore the scars of a dozen battles fought on behalf of the very aliens who now sat in judgment. "The charges are ridiculous," she spat. "I saved an entire colony from destruction if I hadn't disobeyed those orders." Silence. Zixar's voice cracked like a whip. "Your actions, while effective, represent a dangerous precedent. Humans are meant to be obedient soldiers, not independent actors. You've become a symbol, Commander Chen, a rallying point for human dissent across the consortium. We cannot allow this to continue." Sarah's mind raced. She knew the consortium valued humanity's martial prowess, but also feared their potential for rebellion. Humanity had joined the galactic community a mere 50 years ago, and already they were pushing boundaries, asking uncomfortable questions. She represented everything the consortium feared about humans: adaptability, ingenuity, and an unbreakable spirit. Zixar's multifaceted eyes gleamed with malice. "However, in recognition of your past service, we offer you a chance at redemption. A solo mission of vital importance to the consortium." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "What's the catch?" A ripple of amusement passed through the assembled aliens. Zixar's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his species. "Perceptive, as always, Commander. Your mission is simple. You are to survey Nix-9 for potential resources. You will be dropped on the planet's surface with basic supplies. If you survive and manage to transmit valuable data, all charges against you will be dropped." The human commander stared at the hellish landscape on the view screen, then back at the smug alien faces surrounding her. They were sending her to die, plain and simple. No one had ever returned from Nix-9 alive. Its atmosphere was corrosive, its wildlife deadly, and its very soil was toxic to most forms of life. But Sarah Chen was not most forms of life. She was human, and humans had a knack for surviving the impossible. "I accept," she said, her voice steady and determined. Zixar seemed taken aback by her quick acceptance. You too." Sarah allowed herself a small, fierce smile. "Unless you're retracting the offer." "And no," the High Counselor stammered, regaining his composure. "Very well, Commander Chen. You will depart immediately. And do try to transmit some useful data before your inevitable demise." As Sarah was led away to prepare for her mission, whispers erupted among the council members. Some expressed doubt, wondering if they had underestimated the humans' resolve. Others reassured themselves that no being, no matter how tenacious, could survive the horrors of Nix-9. Little did they know, they had just set in motion a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of the consortium. In the preparation chamber, Sarah was outfitted with an environmental suit designed to withstand Nix-9's caustic atmosphere, at least for a while. The alien technicians worked efficiently, but she could sense their unease. To them, they were dressing a corpse. As the final seals were checked, a familiar voice called out, "Sarah, wait." She turned to see Dr. Elias Reeves, the station's chief xenobiologist, rushing towards her. Elias was one of the few non-humans she considered a friend. His species, the Volcran, resembled nothing so much as a sentient patch of bioluminescent moss. but his intellect was razor-sharp, and his heart, or whatever passed for one in Volcrine physiology, was kind. "Elias, what are you doing here?" Sarah asked, surprised. The Volcrine's surface rippled with concern. "I heard about your mission. This is madness, Sarah. No one survives Nix-9." She placed a hand gently on his gelatinous form. "I appreciate your concern, old friend, but we both know I don't have a choice." Elias pulsed with frustration. "At least let me give you this." A tendril extended, offering a small crystalline device. "It's an experimental atmospheric analyzer. It might help you find pockets of breathable air, or at least less deadly areas. And it has enough power to broadcast a distress signal to any ships that might pass by the system." Sarah took the device, touched by her friend's gesture. "Thank you, Elias. I'll make good use of it." As she turned to board the small shuttle that would deliver her to the planet's surface, Elias called out one last time. "Sarah, remember the first rule of survival in hostile environments." She paused at the airlock. "Adapt or die." The Volcrine pulsed with grim humor. "No, don't die." With a final nod to her friend, Commander Sarah Chen stepped into the shuttle. As the doors sealed behind her, she allowed herself a moment of fear. Nix-9 was a death sentence, and she knew it. But humans had a long history of overcoming impossible odds. Whatever this alien hell planet threw at her, she would face it head-on. The shuttle detached from the station with a gentle shudder. Through the viewport, Sarah watched as the massive consortium station grew smaller, until it was just another pinprick of light among the stars. Below her, the angry red orb of Nix-9 grew larger with each passing moment. As the shuttle began its descent, alarms blared. The planet's turbulent atmosphere buffeted the small craft, threatening to tear it apart. Sarah gripped her restraints, teeth clenched as the vessel shook violently. The heat of re-entry turned the viewport into a sheet of fire. With a bone-jarring impact, the shuttle slammed into Nix-9's surface. Emergency systems deployed, filling the cabin with shock-absorbing foam. For several long moments, Sarah hung there, suspended in the viscous substance, unsure she was even still alive. Finally, the foam began to dissolve. Sarah extricated herself from the crash webbing and ran a quick diagnostic on her environmental suit. Miraculously, it was still intact. She retrieved her meager supplies and Elias's analyzer, then turned to the airlock. This was it, the moment of truth. With a deep breath, Commander Sarah Chen opened the airlock and stepped out onto the surface of Nix-9. The wind howled, carrying stinging particles that pattered against her suit. The red sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the blasted landscape. Sarah activated Elias's analyzer, watching as it processed the hostile environment. To her surprise, it indicated a region of slightly less lethal conditions about 10 kilometers to the east. It wasn't much, but it was a start. With a final glance at the ruined shuttle, Sarah Chen began her trek across the deadly surface of Nix-9. She had no illusions about the challenges ahead, but she was determined to survive. The consortium had grossly underestimated human resilience, and Sarah Chen was about to show them just how wrong they were. Part 2. Survival and Discovery. The caustic winds of Nix-9 howled around Commander Sarah Chen as she trudged across the planet's hostile terrain. 3 days had passed since her unceremonious arrival, and each moment had been a brutal struggle for survival. Her environmental suit, designed for short-term exploration, was already showing signs of degradation. Hairline fractures spider-webbed across her visor, a constant reminder of her mortality in this alien hell. Sarah paused atop a ridge of razor-sharp obsidian, surveying the landscape before her. The analyzer Dr. Elias had given her beat insistently, indicating that she was nearing the zone of less lethal conditions it had detected. Not for the first time, she wondered if she was walking into a trap, or worse, chasing a mirage born of desperate hope. As she began her descent down the treacherous slope, a sound cut through the constant roar of the wind, a high-pitched keen that sent shivers down her spine. Sarah froze, every instinct screaming danger. She'd encountered some of Nix-9's wildlife over the past days, corrosive slug-like creatures that dissolved anything they touched, and flying predators with razor-sharp appendages. But this was something new. The keening grew louder, and Sarah's eyes widened as she saw the source. Emerging from a crevice in the rock face was a creature straight out of Earth's prehistory. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, its body a rippling mass of muscle covered in iridescent scales that seemed to shift color with each movement. A row of dorsal spines ran from its serpentine head down to a powerful, whip-like tail. But it was the creature's eyes that truly captured Sarah's attention. Slitted pupils set in orbs of swirling silver, radiating an unsettling intelligence. For a moment, human and alien beast regarded each other in silent assessment. Then, with a speed that belied its size, the creature lunged. Sarah dove to the side, feeling the rush of air as razor-sharp claws missed her by centimeters. She scrambled to her feet, mind racing. Her sidearm, a standard-issue plasma pistol, seemed woefully inadequate against this monstrosity. The creature wheeled around for another attack, its keening cry now a deafening shriek. Sarah's military training kicked in, and she analyzed her surroundings with lightning speed. There, a narrow fissure in the rock face, too small for the beast to follow. It was her only chance. Sarah sprinted towards the opening, acutely aware of the thundering footsteps behind her. She could feel the creature's hot breath on the back of her neck as she dove into the fissure, sharp rocks tearing at her suit. The beast slammed into the rock face, its roar of frustration shaking loose a shower of pebbles. Pressed against the back of the narrow crevice, Sarah watched as the creature paced back and forth, occasionally swiping at the opening with its massive claws. Its silver eyes never left her, filled with a predatory hunger that was all too familiar. This wasn't just an animal acting on instinct. There was calculation in those eyes, a problem-solving intelligence that sent a chill through Sarah's body. Hours passed, and still the creature waited. Sarah's suit beeped urgently, warning of dropping oxygen levels. She knew she couldn't stay in this rocky shelter forever, but every time she shifted, those silver eyes locked onto her with laser-like focus. As the red sun began to set, painting the alien landscape in deep crimson hues, Sarah made a decision. She couldn't wait any longer. Taking a deep breath, she edged towards the opening of the fissure. The creature's head snapped up, a low growl rumbling in its throat. "All right, you overgrown lizard," Sarah muttered. "Let's see how smart you really are." She pulled out her plasma pistol and fired a shot high over the creature's head. The beast flinched at the sudden flash and noise, momentarily distracted. In that split second, Sarah burst from her hiding place, sprinting with every ounce of strength she had left. The creature's roar of rage filled the air as it gave chase. Sarah's lungs burned, her legs screaming in protest as she pushed herself to the limit. She could hear the thundering footsteps growing closer, feel the ground shaking with each impact. Just as she felt the rush of air signaling the creature's final lunge, Sarah's foot caught on a hidden obstacle. She tumbled forward, sure that this was the end. But instead of feeling razor-sharp claws tear into her, she found herself falling, tumbling down a steep incline hidden by the gathering darkness. She rolled and bounced, helpless to stop her descent, until finally coming to a bone-jarring halt at the bottom of what seemed to be a massive sinkhole. Dazed and battered, Sarah looked up to see the creature pacing at the edge of the pit, keening in frustration. It made a few attempts to navigate the steep slope, but seemed unwilling to risk the descent. As the adrenaline faded, pain blossomed across Sarah's body. Warning indicators flashed urgently in her helmet display, suit integrity compromised, oxygen levels critical. With trembling hands, she pulled out the analyzer, praying it had survived the fall. To her amazement, not only was the device intact, but it was going haywire. The readings it displayed were unlike anything she'd seen since landing on Nix-9. Breathable atmosphere, tolerable radiation levels, Even the temperature was within survivable ranges. Sarah's mind raced. Could it be possible? Had she stumbled upon some sort of oasis in this deadly world? With effort, she pushed herself to her feet, wincing at the pain that lanced through her body. She had to be sure. Steeling herself, Commander Sarah Chen reached up and unsealed her helmet. For a moment, she held her breath, half expecting to feel her lungs dissolve in Nix-9's corrosive atmosphere. Instead, she found herself breathing in air that was cool and slightly metallic, but undeniably breathable. A laugh bubbled up from deep in her chest, equal parts relief and disbelief. She had done it. Against all odds, she had found a way to survive on this supposedly unsurvivable world. As Sarah took stock of her surroundings, her eyes widened in wonder. The walls of the sinkhole were covered in a bioluminescent growth, bathing the area in a soft, ethereal glow. At the center of the depression was a pool of liquid that shimmered with an inner light of its own. Alien vegetation, unlike anything she had seen on the surface, grew in abundance. But it was what lay beyond the pool that truly captured her attention. There, half hidden by the strange foliage, was what could only be described as a structure. Geometric shapes and smooth surfaces that spoke of intelligent design. Sarah's heart raced. Had she discovered evidence of an ancient civilization, or something even more extraordinary, a current inhabitant of this deadly world? As she contemplated the implications of her discovery, a sound from above drew her attention. The creature that had chased her still paced at the edge of the sinkhole, but its keening had changed. It was softer now, almost inquisitive. Sarah found herself staring into those silver eyes once again. But this time, instead of seeing a mindless predator, she saw something else. Curiosity, intelligence, and perhaps, just perhaps, a potential ally in this hostile world. Commander Sarah Chen smiled grimly. She had survived the unsurvivable, discovered the impossible, and now stood on the brink of something that could change everything. The consortium had sent her here to die, but instead, she might have stumbled upon the greatest discovery in galactic history. As she took her first steps towards the mysterious structure, Sarah felt a surge of determination. She would unravel the secrets of Nix-9, forge an alliance with its inhabitants, begin the strange beast above or whatever intelligence had built this hidden oasis, and then she would return to the stars. And when she did, the consortium would learn just how badly they had underestimated humanity's greatest strengths: adaptability, ingenuity, and an unforging an alliance. The alien structure loomed before Sarah, its smooth surfaces a stark contrast to the jagged landscape of Nix-9. As she'd approached, her mind raced with possibilities. Was this the key to surviving on this deadly world? Or perhaps something even more significant, a discovery that could reshape humanity's place in the galaxy? Sarah's musings were interrupted by a familiar keening cry. She whirled around to see the massive predator that had chased her earlier, now carefully picking its way down the sinkhole's slope. Its silver eyes never left her, filled with an unsettling mix of curiosity and predatory focus. "Well, big guy," Sarah muttered, reaching for her plasma pistol. "I guess we're going to settle this one way or another." But as the creature reached the bottom of the sinkhole, something unexpected happened. Instead of charging, it sat back on its haunches, tilted its head, and let out a series of complex vocalizations. Sarah froze, her hand hovering over her weapon. This wasn't the behavior of a mindless predator. Acting on instinct, Sarah slowly raised her empty hands, palms outward. "Easy there," she said softly. "I'm not looking for a fight." The creature's spines rippled, and it made another series of sounds. To Sarah's astonishment, she felt a tickle in the back of her mind, as if something was trying to communicate directly with her thoughts. "Impossible," she breathed. But then again, nothing about Nix-9 had been what she expected. Cautiously, Sarah took a step towards the creature. It tensed, but didn't retreat. Another step and another. Soon, she was close enough to touch it, though she kept her hands carefully at her sides. "You're not just an animal, are you?" Sarah asked, staring into those intelligent silver eyes. "You're something more." The creature's spines rippled again, and this time the tickle in Sarah's mind resolved into something clearer, not quite words, but definite concepts. Curiosity, wariness, and underneath it all, a desperate loneliness that took her breath away. "You're alone here," Sarah realized, "just like me." Slowly, telegraphing her movements, she reached out a hand. The creature eyed it warily but didn't pull away. When Sarah's fingers finally made contact with its iridescent scales, a jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them. Images flooded her mind, the creature's life on Nix-9, its struggles and triumphs, and a deep, abiding intelligence that rivaled any Sarah had encountered in her travels across the galaxy. "Well," Sarah said with a shaky laugh, "I guess we should introduce ourselves properly. I'm Sarah. And you? I think I'll call you Shadow." The newly named Shadow let out a trill that Sarah somehow knew was approval. As the connection between them strengthened, Sarah began to understand more. Shadow's species, the Nix, as they called themselves, were not native to this world. They had been brought here long ago by the same race that built the structure behind her. "The Precursors," Sarah whispered, the name coming to her through her link with Shadow. An ancient race of unimaginable technological advancement who had used Nix-9 as a testing ground for their creations. The Nix were one such creation, engineered to survive the planet's harsh conditions and imbued with powerful psychic abilities. But something had gone wrong. The Precursors had vanished, leaving their creations stranded on this deadly world. Over millennia, the Nix had dwindled until only Shadow remained, the last of its kind, guardian of the Precursor legacy and prisoner of this unforgiving planet. Sarah's heart ached for Shadow's loneliness, even as her mind reeled at the implications of what she had learned. The Consortium, with all its supposed advancement, had no idea of the treasures hidden on Nix-9. If she could bring this knowledge back, it would revolutionize their understanding of galactic history. But first, they had to survive. "All right, Shadow," Sarah said, a plan forming in her mind. "I think it's time we explored that structure together. What do you say? Partners?" Shadow's agreement resonated in her mind, along with a fierce loyalty that brought tears to Sarah's eyes. Together, human and Nix turned towards the Precursor building, ready to unlock its secrets. As they approached, the structure seemed to come alive. Lines of bioluminescent energy pulsed along its surface, and a doorway materialized where there had been only smooth wall moments before. Sarah and Shadow exchanged a glance, then stepped inside. The interior was a marvel of advanced technology, somehow still functioning after untold ages. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing star maps and schematics that made Sarah's head spin. Through her connection with Shadow, she began to decipher the Precursor language, unlocking knowledge that had been lost for eons. They discovered environmental controls that could terraform sections of Nix-9, making it habitable for a variety of species. Weapons of unimaginable power, capable of destroying entire fleets. And most intriguingly, blueprints for a ship unlike anything Sarah had ever seen, one capable of traversing not just space, but time itself. As the days turned to weeks, Sarah and Shadow worked tirelessly to understand and control the Precursor technology. Sarah's military training and human ingenuity, combined with Shadow's innate understanding of the planet and psychic abilities, made them an unstoppable team. They began to change Nix-9, using the terraforming technology to create pockets of habitable land. Sarah sent out encrypted broadcasts, hoping to attract the attention of other outcasts and rebels who might join their cause. And all the while, they prepared for the inevitable day when the Consortium would come to investigate why Commander Sarah Chen hadn't died as planned. One night, as they sat watching the stars from the entrance of their Precursor base, Sarah turned to Shadow. "You know," she said, scratching behind the Nix's spines in a way she knew it enjoyed. "When I first landed here, I thought this place would be the death of me. Instead, it's given me a purpose and a friend." Shadow's contentment flowed through their mental link, along with an image that made Sarah laugh out loud, the two of them, side by side, facing down a crowd of shocked consortium officials. "You're right," Sarah grinned. "Their faces are going to be priceless when we show up with you as my pet. But first, we need to figure out how to get off this rock." As if in answer, an alarm sounded from inside the base. Sarah and Shadow rushed to the control room, where a holographic display showed a consortium ship entering the system. "Well, my friend," Sarah said, her eyes glinting with determination, "it looks like our ride is here. What do you say we go introduce ourselves?" Shadow's roar of agreement shook the very foundations of their base. As alarms blared and the precursor technology hummed to life around them, Sarah felt a fierce joy bubble up inside her. The consortium had meant for Nix-9 to be her end. Instead, it had become a new beginning, not just for her, but potentially for the entire galaxy. Commander Sarah Chen, once exiled and left for dead, was about to return to the stars, and with Shadow by her side and the power of the precursors at her fingertips, she would show the consortium just how badly they had underestimated the human spirit. The universe would never be the same again. The return. The consortium patrol ship Vigilant drifted lazily through the Nix-9 system, its crew bored and complacent. They had drawn the short straw for this assignment, checking on a planet everyone knew was uninhabitable, searching for traces of a human commander who had surely perished months ago. Lieutenant Zorak, a young Fraxian officer with more ambition than experience, stared at the sensor readouts with glazed eyes. Suddenly, she jolted upright, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Captain," she called out, "I'm detecting an energy signature from the planet's surface. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Captain Vaughn, a grizzled Solatian veteran, lumbered over to her station. His gelatinous body rippled with skepticism. "Impossible," he gurgled. "Nothing survives on Nix-9. Run a diagnostic on the sensors." Before Zora could comply, the ship's alarms blared to life. A massive energy spike erupted from the planet's surface, enveloping the Vigilant in a shimmering field of otherworldly power. "By the cosmic egg," Vaughn whispered, his multiple eyes wide with shock. "What in the name of the eternal void is happening?" On the bridge's main view screen, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. From the swirling vortex emerged a ship of impossible design, sleek, organic lines melded seamlessly with crystalline structures that pulsed with internal light. It was beautiful, alien, and terrifying all at once. "Hail them," Vaughn barked, his gelatinous form quivering with a mix of fear and excitement. Lieutenant Sorok's claws danced over her console. "Channel open, sir." The view screen flickered, and the consortium crew collectively gasped. There, standing on the bridge of the alien vessel, was a human woman in a battered environmental suit. But it wasn't her survival that shocked them into silence, it was her companion. Looming beside the human was a creature out of legend, a massive, iridescent beast with silver eyes that seemed to pierce through the screen and into their very souls. Its muscular body rippled with barely contained power, and a low growl resonated through the comm channel, sending shivers down the spines of every being on the Vigilance bridge. The human woman stepped forward, a fierce grin on her face. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of Earth, presumed dead and loving every minute of it. I believe you folks were looking for me." Captain Vaughn's gelatinous form rippled with disbelief. "Impossible," he gurgled. "No one survives Nix-9. And that creature, what sorcery is this?" Sarah's grin widened. "Oh, this is Shadow. Say hello to the nice consortium folks, buddy." The creature, Shadow, let out a bone-rattling roar that caused several of the Vigilance crew to lose control of their various orifices. "Now then," Sarah continued, her voice taking on a steely edge, "we're going to have a nice little chat about the future of galactic politics. I've got some ideas I think the consortium leadership will find enlightening." As the Vigilance crew stared in slack-jawed amazement, Sarah began to outline her plan. She spoke of the precursors, of technology beyond their wildest dreams, and of a new era of cooperation between species. All the while, Shadow stood by her side, a living testament to the impossible made real. Lieutenant Zorak, her initial shock giving way to wild excitement, furiously took notes. This was the kind of discovery that made careers or toppled empires. So, Sarah concluded, you fine folks have a choice to make. You can try to stop us, which, given the technologies at my disposal, would be spectacularly unwise. Or you can join us in ushering in a new age for all sentient beings in the galaxy. What's it going to be? Captain Vaughn, his gelatinous form still quivering, exchanged glances with his officers. In that moment, he realized that everything was about to change. The consortium's carefully maintained balance of power, the subjugation of lesser species like humans, it was all about to be turned on its head. And strangely, he found himself excited by the prospect. Commander Chen, Vaughn said, drawing himself up to his full wobbling height, I believe we have much to discuss. Welcome back to the land of the living. I suspect things are about to get very interesting indeed. As the Vigilant, Ansara's precursor ship set course for the heart of consortium space, news of the impossible return began to spread. Across the galaxy, oppressed species dared to hope, entrenched powers trembled, and everyone braced for a cosmic shake-up of unprecedented proportions. Commander Sarah Chen, once exiled and left for dead, was coming home, and she was bringing a revolution with her. The stars themselves seemed to burn brighter, heralding the dawn of a new era. An era where humanity would take its rightful place among the cosmos, with an alien beast as an ally and the legacy of an ancient civilization at their fingertips. The consortium had no idea what was about to hit them, but they were about to find out. And their faces, when they saw Shadow at Sarah's side, would indeed be priceless. Confrontation and triumph. The heart of the consortium, a massive space station known as the Nexus, hung in orbit around a pale blue gas giant. Its gleaming spires and interconnected rings housed the most powerful beings in the known galaxy. For centuries, it had stood as an unassailable symbol of the consortium's dominance. Today, that was about to change. Alarms blared throughout the station as Sarah Chen's precursor ship materialized from a swirling vortex of space-time. The vessel's organic crystalline structure pulsed with otherworldly energy, dwarfing even the largest consortium warships that scrambled to intercept it. Inside the Nexus's Grand Council chamber, pandemonium reigned. Alien dignitaries from 100 worlds shouted over each other, demanding explanations and action. At the center of the chaos stood High Counselor Zixar, his iridescent scales dulled with stress. Order! He bellowed, his voice amplified by neural enhancers. We'll face this threat with the full might of the consortium. A hush fell over the chamber as the main view screen flickered to life. The assembled aliens gasped collectively as they beheld Commander Sarah Chen, standing proud and defiant on the bridge of her impossible ship. But it was the creature at her side that truly struck fear into their hearts. Shadow, the last of the Nix, filled the screen with its massive presence. Silver eyes swept across the council chamber, seeming to pierce through the video feed and into the very souls of the consortium leadership. A low, resonant growl caused the view screen to vibrate ominously. "Hello, Counselor," Sarah said, her voice dripping with barely contained satisfaction. "Miss me?" Zixar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. "Commander Chen," he managed, trying to maintain a facade of control. "Your survival is unexpected, as is your new pet. Perhaps we can discuss your safe return tow." "Oh, I don't think so," Sarah cut him off. "You see, Shadow here isn't my pet. He's my partner. And we're not here to negotiate my return. We're here to negotiate yours." Confused murmurs rippled through the council chamber. Zixar's eye stalks quivered with indignation. "The audacity. You dare threaten the consortium. Our fleets will reduce your ship to cosmic dust." Sarah's laugh was cold and sharp as a blade. "Your fleets? Take a look outside, Counselor. Things have changed while I was away." With a gesture, the view on the screen split. One half still showed Sarah and Shadow, while the other displayed the space around the Nexus. The consortium leaders watched in horror as their mighty warships were effortlessly held in place by shimmering fields of energy. Smaller craft of bizarre, organic design fitted between them, clearly of the same precursor origin as Sarah's vessel. Impossible, Zixthar whispered. That word keeps coming up, Sarah mused. You think you'd have learned by now. Humanity doesn't bow to your limitations. We shatter them. She leaned forward, her eyes blazing with the fire of revolution. Now, let's talk about the future. A future where humanity and all the other species you've oppressed take their rightful place as equals. A future built on cooperation, not subjugation. What followed was the most extraordinary negotiation in galactic history. Sarah, with Shadow's imposing presence beside her, laid out a vision for a new interstellar society. She spoke of precursor technology that could end scarcity, of medical advancements that could extend lifespans across species, of faster-than-light travel that would open up the universe like never before. But it wasn't just threats and promises. Sarah had brought allies, representatives from dozens of downtrodden species who had flocked to her cause. They spoke of the consortium's abuses, of the potential they'd been denied, of the dream of true equality. As the hours stretched on, the tide began to turn. Many consortium members, seeing the writing on the wall, began to throw their support behind Sarah's vision. Others, entrenched in their power, resisted, but found themselves increasingly isolated. Zixthar, his once absolute power crumbling before his eyes, made a last desperate move. Enough, he shrieked, activating a hidden control panel. I would rather see the Nexus destroyed than handed over to lesser beings. Klaxons blared as the station's self-destruct sequence engaged. Panic erupted in the council chamber, aliens of all species scrambling for escape pods. Sarah's voice cut through the chaos like a whip crack. Shadow, now. The massive Nyx closed its silver eyes, focusing its psychic powers. A wave of invisible energy washed through the station, interfacing with its systems on a level beyond physical technology. In an instant, the self-destruct was neutralized. On the view screen, Sarah allowed herself a satisfied smirk. Did you really think we'd come unprepared? It's over, Zixthar. The age of the consortium is finished. The age of unity begins now. In that moment, watching the human woman stand tall with an alien beast of legend at her side, even the most hardened consortium loyalists felt the foundations of their worldview crumble. This was more than just a power shift, it was a paradigm change on a galactic scale. As the dust settled and the new galactic accords were drawn up, beings across the cosmos watched in awe. The story spread like wildfire. How a lone human, exiled to die on the deadliest planet in the galaxy, had instead returned with the power to reshape civilization itself. Commander Sarah Chen became a legend, a symbol of humanity's indomitable spirit and the bridges that could be built between species. And Shadow, the last of the Nyx, stood as a living reminder that in the vast universe, nothing was truly impossible. The consortium leaders who had smugly sent Sarah to her death now found themselves forced to adapt to a new reality, one where humans and their allies stood as equals, backed by technology beyond their wildest dreams. As news of the revolution spread to Earth and humanity's colonies, celebrations erupted. The species that had been dismissed as upstart newcomers had, in one stunning stroke, catapulted themselves to the forefront of galactic civilization. Sarah allowed herself a moment of reflection as she gazed out at the stars from the Nexus observation deck, Shadow a comforting presence at her side. They had done the impossible, changed the course of history, but she knew this was just the beginning. There were still challenges ahead, resistances to quell, alliances to forge, and the vast legacy of the precursors to explore. But for the first time in her life, Sarah felt truly free. Free to shape the future, to push the boundaries of what was possible. She placed a hand on Shadow's flank, feeling the thrum of ancient power beneath its scales. "Well, old friend," she said softly, "ready for our next adventure?" Shadow's rumble of agreement resonated through her very bones. As they turned to face the new dawn, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The consortium had sent her to die on Nix-9, never imagining she'd return with the key to revolutionizing the galaxy. Their mistake, humanity's triumph. And as for their faces when they saw her with Shadow by her side, well, that memory would keep her smiling for a very long time to come. The universe stretched out before them, vast and full of possibilities. Commander Sarah Chen and Shadow, the human and the Nix, unlikely allies and architects of a new age, stepped forward to meet it. Their story, already the stuff of legend, was only just beginning.